Hey guys, Abner Miranda here. Today I want to talk with you about the structural requirement of a handgun, of a combat handgun. The notation that I made for this video is anatomy of the combat handgun. It must have an intense structural requirement to do only a few things extremely well. Those few things, I had to spend some time thinking about it, because what I used to think was a crucial element to a fighting handgun has actually changed for me, and what I now consider to be a fighting handgun is dramatically different. I used to be heavily focused on the Glock 17. That was my weapon of carry. It was the closest size to what I carried when I was a police officer, and when I left law enforcement in 2011, I still mentally was kind of geared toward the full-size handgun because I'm a huge dude. So I knew that with large hands, I needed to have a I thought that with large hands, I needed to have a large handgun. And so immediately after leaving law enforcement, I went right back to the Glock 21, also known as Glockzilla. It's a 45 caliber. Love the gun. To me, it's the best Glock ever. When you talk to Glock, they tell you it's known as the eternal Glock because the 45 round is so gentle on its recoil impulse that it doesn't abuse the gun like 9mm does. But when I went from being a magazine writer, where you got T&E ammo and a lot of it, to being a regular guy like y'all and had to buy my ammo cases at a time because I was still going through a lot of ammo, reality bit me, and I thought, 45 caliber versus 9mm, and 45 cal is almost double the cost of 9mm. It's equivalent, I think last time I checked, it is equivalent almost to the penny to the cost of a rifle round in .223. So I had to kind of walk away from that. And not to mention, when I started looking at the validity of 9mm, today's 9mm has an efficacy to it that is phenomenal. I mean, the 9mm rounds of today are capable of doing things that no one could have imagined just 15 or 20 years ago. So 9mm had everything that I needed. And like you guys have heard me say before, when I worked for a body armor manufacturer many years ago, we were told never to allow MP5s to come out for the demos because a 9mm fired from an MP5 can wreck body armor. Well, 9mm in and of itself from a handgun is atrociously hard on body armor. So the 9mm round is a very valid round. Once you differentiate between 45-40 9mm, then you have to start asking yourself the questions of, well, what to me is what I consider to be the round, the handgun that I'm looking for. And for me, I went to the 17 for a while because still that whole big gun thing. The Gen 4 Glock 17 had the backstrap with the beaver tail that for real mimicked the feel of a Glock 21 45, but I could not conceal it very well. And my buddy Daniel says, have you considered the 19? And of course, by that point I had transitioned from Glock 21 to Glock 17. And if you understand Glocks, you realize the Glock 19 is nothing but a 17 with this lopped off and with this lopped off, because circumference-wise, or thickness-wise rather, it's the same exact gun. So I went to the 19, and by the time the 19s came into my life, I had already jumped all the way into modifying guns and doing framework, and I modded this gun, and dude, could not be happier. Really quick, finger grooves, which are made for a 12-year-old girl, whatever, those came off. Undercut the trigger guard and rounded it. Took the front of the trigger guard off, rounded everything, and gave it a kind of a suede finish with the Dremel and then just with sandpaper on the end of my finger, just kind of rubbing at it. Then 360 stipple, and people that touch this say it really feels like suede. It doesn't bite into you, it doesn't tear up your clothing, because guys, aggressive stippling is honestly lazy stippling. This type of stippling takes twice as much as aggressive stippling. Aggressive stippling is just the person that did your stippling using a really big appliance and going and covering massive swaths of your gun so that can be done in 30-ish minutes as opposed to 4 hours. This is done with a needle point. It's literally in, out with a magnifying lens, in, out, and in, back in, right close to the very same hole that I've just touched before. But it renders a surface that is so beautiful to carry against the skin or against an undershirt without tearing your clothing up, that I have been amazed at how great this feels. I added speed cuts to the gun on both sides, because if you're going to do it on one side, do it on the other. I added what I consider to be the finest combat sights out there, the Spalding, oh man, I'm drawing a blank. Sorry, Dave. To me, they're just known as the Spalding sights, cap sights, Spalding cap sights, which are available at Handgun Combatives. The front square glows at night really bright. The slightest little exposure to light makes that thing glow like it just behaves like a green dot out in front of you. Even in daylight, it stands out when you're pushing that gun out in front of you, and there are no failure issues. And trust me, I'm going to get to the RMR thing in just a couple of minutes. Externally, that's the Vickers Tactical slide catch or slide stop, and of course Vickers Tactical floor plates for my initial 15 rounder. Once I exhaust the 15 rounder, then I go to 21 rounders from Magpul, one on either side of my jeans, which have been modified to carry magazines. And by going with these, the 15 rounder comes out, 21 rounder comes in. The complaint everyone has about the 15 rounder is the same complaint that I have. When the 15 rounder goes in, it catches the edge of your pinky. Right there, it caught me even when I was doing it slowly. It catches either your pinky or the inside of your palm, and it'll give you a good blood blister if you do this very quickly in training. But I find that if I actually exhaust 15 rounds and I have to go to a 21, first of all, that means I'm not doing my job, I'm not following through. And secondly, I've got a major fight on my hands, so if I actually have to reload, wouldn't it be nice to reload with something really substantial? So 21 rounders, and for those that are going to ask, well, why not 30-something rounders? Well, first of all, a 21 rounder from Magpul, the Magpul GL921, weighs less than a Glock 17 with the plus, what is it, plus 2 extension? Yeah, the plus 2 extension. It weighs less than that. So I find that these things are bulletproof. These are actually the second set that I've purchased. The first set that I used out here as training mags for quite a long time, I ended up passing forward as my daily carry mags because they'd proven themselves to be absolutely trustworthy. And then I bought a second entire set of these, and I have like almost a dozen of these things now. Because once you find something, by the way guys, in this industry, once you find something, buy 2, buy 3, buy 4, buy 12. Because designs change, manufacturers feel the need to go to version 2.0, 3.0, and they change the design for the sake of changing the SKU. And in doing so, they may move away from something that is absolutely perfect to something that is less, just for the sake of change, as evidenced by the fact that the ZEV connector that I've been running in my gun for several years now, and I've actually passed it across 4 Glocks at this point. Luckily, I have multiples of them, but this particular one has actually gone across 3 Glocks. This is the ZEV V4 connector, and the ZEV Pro, which is the latest iteration, is nowhere near as good as this one is. This one renders a trigger pull that is so consistent. There's no hiccup. The hiccup is completely taken out of the trigger pull, and it is beautiful. It transforms an OEM Glock with nothing other than the connector, because all the springs that are in here are OEM. The connector transforms this Glock into a performance piece. And really that's internally the only thing that I've done. I stippled the back plate because when you go to holster, you want to have positive forward pressure on your slide. So as you go to holster, should dirt have gotten into your holster, it can potentially bring your gun out of battery. So you want to holster with your thumb on the back. The question that people have is, well, why not a handgun light? And people will be viewing my older videos and they'll go, well, you're running a handgun light in this one. Yeah, well, look at the date of the video. I've got a lot of video, guys. The reason I no longer run a handgun light is, frankly, I was tired of the failures. I kept experiencing failure failure with everybody's lights, so don't start screaming about one manufacturer over the other. Inforce, Surefire, Streamlight, I kept experiencing failure or just flat out battery failure. And for those that don't know, here are some of the facts of LED lighting. Every time that you pop that light on to check it, to make sure that the battery is good, you're actually drawing a bunch of energy off that battery. What most of you don't know is LED lighting is designed around a lumen rating. And that lumen rating is designed around just a few seconds of runtime. You fire up your light, and let's say your light is rated for 400 lumens. So you fire up your light and it delivers 400 lumens for like 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Depending on the size of your battery and the battery count, 1 or 2, your light may only give you 5 seconds, 3 seconds of 400 lumens, and it immediately dumbs down to half that. And the reason for that is manufacturers know that the human eye does what when it's exposed to a lot of light? It constricts, right? So the human eye automatically constricts to that light. And in the constriction, the eye and the mind in concert working with one another can't differentiate in the massive change in lumens. The lights that actually do this the worst that I've noticed are the O lights. They're like 1,000 lumens, and you turn it on and the light goes pop, boop, and it dims down. And it's so obvious that it dims down. It's like when you whip your phone out of your pocket and you forgot that you were running the phone out of auto mode, so you activate auto mode, and all of a sudden that thing just dims down because you're in subdued lighting. Like let's say you're running your phone in broad daylight like this, and it just wasn't bright enough, so you took it off auto and you ramped that backlight up all the way. But now tonight you're laying in bed catching up on Instagram, you're like, wow, that's bright, and you pop auto and it dims down. Same effect with a light. Well, every single time that you pop that light on, pop that light off, and then holster, and then the next day you chamber check your gun, pop that light on, pop that light off, holster. And you do this multiple times. After, what was it, 70 something cycles? I forget what it was. It's not many, because when you consider 70 something cycles can be as little as 2-ish months, or really as little as 1-ish month, depending on if you're gun on in the morning on your way to work, gun off when you get to work, because you may work somewhere where you have to lock your weapon in your vehicle, gun on when you get off work, gun off when you get home, gun on when you go out to run errands, go to dinner with the family, gun off, gun on, or light on. I keep saying gun, guys. Light on at night before you go to bed. What is that? 4, 5 cycles of on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. So, not to get off track on this video, but that's one of the reasons why I'm no longer running a light on my gun, because I was really experiencing failures of battery, thinking it was failure of light. And what I ended up doing was, I ended up taking every single light that I own, and I chose the shelf that is probably that wide in my office directly above my workbench where I build rifles. Every single tactical light that I own that isn't obviously presently on a weapon has been activated and placed on the shelf. Streamlight, Surefire, Inforce, they're all up there. One time a month, I pick them up and I pop them on for the briefest of seconds, and I put them back on the shelf. And I do the next one and I put it back on the shelf. And guess what? So far, every single light is still running bright. Why? Because I'm not doing it 5 times a day. I'm doing it once a month. And what I'm finding is, no, there isn't a draw issue. I was killing the lights myself. So if you have the ability to do this, guys, put fresh batteries in your lights, put them on a shelf, and let them sit there. And by the way, guys, I believe I'm now 5 months into this test, and every single light is still running strong. So let's move on. The anatomy of the combat handgun is, in my estimation, and based on my experience as a law enforcement officer, based on my extensive training, is this gun right here, the Glock 19. There are 3 men that I know of that when you ask them, what is your favorite combat handgun, they will tell you Glock 19. Ken Hackathorn, Dave Spalding, Larry Vickers. I've been at classes and I've watched all 3 of those men be asked that question and answer that question with Glock 19. So if those 3 guys are telling you that this is the go-to handgun for self-defense, you got to consider that. I keep seeing people trying to push something else. Guys, Glock. When a customer or student asks me a question, Glock. Well, what about Glock? Well, I was thinking about Glock. Well, hey, how about the Glock? You want to buy that other gun? Fine, buy that other gun, but begin here. Begin with a Glock 19, then go somewhere else. So that when that something else doesn't meet your needs or flat out fails you, the Glock 19 will not. If you're looking for a rock-solid defensive handgun, the Glock 19, specifically the Glock 19, is the way to go. As I'm filming this, there have been some recent shootings in America. It is August 3rd right now. I believe it's August 3rd. No, it's August 4th today, Sunday. And I think within less than 24 hours ago, there was a shooting in Ohio by some people wearing body armor. Imagine how many rounds you're going to have to put into a bad guy before you mentally click into the fact that he's not going down, and then you're going to have to shift fire. Wouldn't it be nice to have a lot of extra ammo to do that with? Think about that, guys. Those of you that are running around with Glock 43s and you feel all kinds of awesome sauce, I've trained around people with Glock 43s, and they consistently say, man, that gun runs out of ammo fast. Wow, is it hard to load. Oh yeah, well I can put extended mags in it. Well, if you're going to put an extended mag in a Glock 43, you just turned it into a Glock 19. It's like the people that take Glock 19s and they put those gigantic things out on the front of them. Okay, you just turned a 19 into a 17. If you're going to buy 19, run a 19. If you're going to buy 17, run a 17. If you're going to buy 43, run a 43. But this propensity that we have to constantly up-feature, up-feature, up-feature. Up-featuring does nothing but add the word more to your handgun. It doesn't add the word skill to your handgun. The way you add skill to your handgun isn't really to your handgun, it's to yourself. It's to your mind, and it's to your eyes, and it's to your hands. And the way you do that is out here. Sweating. Sorry to tell you, sweating. It's hot today, and I'm sweating. But I'm out here doing the work because this means something to me. As always, I thank you guys for watching. God bless you all. Get those guns out in practice. Have a good one.